shortly. And shortly means now. So it's Jess and Melissa at Bodify. We are so excited you're here, as well as Bodify Academy. So we're going to talk all things elite today. Just a few housekeeping items. Please make sure you're on mute. Also, feel free to use the chat function. We will have a section at the end of the webinar where we're answering any of your questions regarding elite, treatments, pricing, etc. So make sure that you keep those at the top of your mind and decide what you want to ask us. And then lastly, this webinar is really about at the end saying, do we think investing in CoolSculpting Elite is worth it or not worth it? So we're going to give you the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between, and then we'll let you know our answer. But before we dive into that, Melissa, how about you just talk a little bit about the sister duo?
All right, I'm Melissa Mickelson. This is my younger sister, which she loves to point out. Actually, you're in front of the elite. Let's move you over.
Well, we're going to do the reveal later.
I personally have been doing CoolSculpting for over 10 years. Jess and I have always wanted to own a business together. We just celebrated our 6th year in business, opening Bodify. We have 7 CoolSculpting machines. We just have transferred everything over to the elite. We're so excited. We've done over 20.
I think she just did the spoiler alert on whether or not we think it's worth it, but okay.
Yeah, no. We've done over 23,000 treatments, and we are just obsessed with CoolSculpting, all things CoolSculpting, and we love the life that we've been able to build because of it.
Absolutely. So when Allllll came to us and said, guess what? You have an opportunity to be an assessment site along with 10 other practices in the nation, because we want you to, look at this new machine and give us honest feedback. Our knee-jerk reaction might have been similar to what maybe yours was, which is CoolSculpting works great. Maybe the box is ugly. Maybe it is a little bulky. Maybe it does generate a lot of heat, but why in the world would I invest more money in upgrading to a machine just because it's prettier and maybe has some other features that don't really matter? So when we looked at it, we said, guess what? This machine really needs to make sense on 3 different fronts. Number 1, we love our team. Our team rocks. And if they're not happy, we're not happy. So we wanted to make sure that if we brought this device in, that their lives would be easier, that their workflow would be improved, that it would become more efficient. We also said, is this a good financial decision for Bodify? Our machines are paid off, we're debt-free, and do we really want to lay out all this cash to bring in an improved device if it was improved? And then lastly, clients are of paramount importance, and we really needed to scrutinize if people were getting better or fast results, or the results weren't changing. So let's talk first about workflow for our team, because that's at the heart of the decision that we made later on. So Melissa, what are some workflow things we've noticed with the elite?
I think a lot of practices struggle with, CoolSculpting takes up a lot. Of space. You can see that horrible picture on the right-hand side. There's applicators everywhere, contours everywhere, card stacks, supplies, and all of that. And the new elite system really has streamlined everything. It has the detachable applicator heads, which makes storage a breeze, cleanup a breeze, no more contours, no more like sinks full of stuff. And so we really love that part of it.
So Bodify is very fortunate. All we do is CoolSculpting. And so we will routinely have 2 or 3 people in the room with the client so that we can switch things over and get the new applicators and the new contours and the new cards in and transferred over. A lot of offices don't have that luxury. Last night I was doing dual CoolSculpting on someone just on her lower and upper abdomen, and it was like a cinch. It was so much easier to wipe her off, wipe her down, get the new applicators ready. And so we consider ourselves a well-oiled pit crew, and we make things happen very quickly, but it is getting way more efficient. And at the end of the day, we all know time equals money, and you want people in the chair, out of the chair, so that they're not just, sitting around being bored and waiting between treatments. So even though it might seem like a silly thing, I actually think it's pretty impactful.
And just to show you, here's one of the detachable heads. It's got this really nice new shiny smooth interior, which when you just use a wet wipe to clean it up, it comes out so much easier and faster than the other ones.
Less gel and hair for days. So we already kind of touched on the treatment execution, but let's watch this little video real quickly because we love the CoolSculpting Elite.
This is one of our assessment subjects, and she was doing her flanks and her full tummy, and we were working on whether or not we could quad CoolSculpt with just one person. So we filmed this just to show how easy it is. You're not having hoses everywhere and 4 machines, and you're limboing under certain things, and it really is a breeze. It takes a little bit of time to kind of get used to which hoses go where, but this is a fun video.
In general, we think it's Perfect. So Melissa already talked about treatment execution being much easier, smaller system. Again, if you're in New York or a place where you have really confined space, this is nice. And I think it is important for the client too, right? Sometimes when you have 4 machines in there and it just is all these hoses and all this heat, it's not such a great experience for the client. Maybe they don't know otherwise, but now with the Elite, you'll know otherwise. And so it's nice to just kind of elevate that experience for them. I really like that there's 2 heads, 2 applicator heads per machine. Again, I think it is a great use of space. For an account like us that has 4, 5, 6, 7 machines, maybe it's not going to improve your ROI, and maybe it's not going to make, you know, the revenue per machine per room bump up. For practices that have 1 or 2 machines, this is going to be a game changer. And then Melissa, what about that hose flexibility?
The hose flexibility, it's interesting because we don't have that support arm anymore with the new machine. And so if you can literally run the hose underneath the chair and wrap it around the other side. So if you have the machine on one side, you can address the fat on somebody on the opposite side of it. And it just makes the workflow so much easier. We're able to bend and twist and turn, and it's not popping off because of the angle that we're putting it on.
And lastly, maybe a little bit of a change, but one that I think, you know, Clive and George and the Allergan team really listened to feedback, is that they improved the marking templates. So again, most of us are very well versed in CoolSculpting, and you can look at a body and you say, oh my gosh, I need the plus, which is now the C240, or oh, I need this one or this one. But for a lot of accounts, that's still a little unsettling, and they maybe don't have that aesthetic eye yet. And this makes it so perfect. So not only is this much more representative of the actual shape of the applicator, so that you're not choosing the wrong applicator choice, but it's just much easier to mark too, right? So you put it on, you mark around, you can extend the lines here. So that way, as either a new technician or someone who's like, hey, I really want to make sure that I'm putting the applicator on exactly in the way that the fat pad sits in order to get the best client outcome. These are just a game changer for people. The clear plastic templates, you could kind of wrap around people. So sometimes you're like, oh, you're perfect for a core. And then all of a sudden you're like, you're not perfect for a core. This really lets you see. So for example, if I'm going to put it on my tummy, that it's way overkill just because of the shape and how it sits on the body.
And this is not really a workflow thing, but I was in a consultation yesterday selling an Elite treatment, and I was using this new C240 or the old Plus to demonstrate on my potential patient of what it was going to pull in. And because it's rigid, you press it on there and literally his fat was just coming through, and it's such a visual impact.
Like, oh, I need this.
Like he's like, whoa, there's a lot of fat there. And so I think that really helped sell him. He ended up buying like a $12,000 package. And I really think a lot of it had to do with pushing this really hard, so his fat was spilling out.
Yeah, people buy emotionally and justify logically. And so you don't want to do it in a manipulative way, but you want to really show people like, look, you're here for a reason. There is something that we can do. And some of the new tools that they've created, we think just kind of ramp up that emotion so people feel more compelled to take that next step. So we love the 2-minute timer. We have said, Allergan has said, anyone who's well-versed in CoolSculpting knows that that 2-minute timed massage not only brings blood flow back to the area, but gets people a 68% better result. But we've all had that experience where you're like, I have no idea if it's been 2 minutes. And then you look and it's been 20 seconds and you think you've massaged for 2 minutes, which really is going to be a disadvantage to the client. So they actually built the 2-minute timer into the machine, which is really, really nice. So that way you can make sure you're administering that 2-minute massage.
I wish they would put a 1-minute timer though.
That would be nice.
For the pre-treatment wipe. I'm going to skip the Allllll integration because Jess and I are at a little bit of an impasse of who likes this and who doesn't.
I like it.
But I'm going to go with the fewer consumable cards. No longer do we have the Petite, the Plus, the Pro, the Mini cards. It's completely streamlined. We have one card, maybe 2. I think it's just the solo card, and that can run anything, which makes life so much easier. We at any time have like $80,000 worth of consumables, and we have stacks and stacks of them everywhere. And it's just going to clean the workflow up. You're not switching in between, if I switch from a mini to this one to that one, I'm not finding cards and trying to figure out, where they are. What else do you think?
And I think we get calls from a lot of offices asking us how we manage our inventory, or we'll get calls from local Arizona providers that are like, oh my gosh, the treatment plan changed and I need a plus and I don't have a card. Can I please borrow one? And so I think that's really going to be minimized, and that is stressful for everyone. So why I like the Allllll integration is I think it's like, don't pass go, right? How many times does my front office forget to ask someone if they have Allllll, or to look up the phone number and actually input the number of cycles that person did? Well, what we know is that 40% of people who do CoolSculpting within your practice are going to use those Allllll points within your practice. So it really behooves you to make sure that you're giving people those cycles and those points so they can convert them to dollars later on, especially because little nudges sometimes make the big difference. So yes, it's a few extra steps because you can't progress the machine without getting someone's Allllll information, but I think you just need to incorporate it into your process. So you bring someone back before you change them. You say, guess what? We're going to get your Allllll pulled up to make sure that you get credit for today's treatments. And if it becomes a process, it'll just become a no-brainer and you won't be missing it. And it hopefully won't be annoying, but Melissa doesn't think so.
Yeah, for me, you're in the workflow, you're like wanting to get everything done. You no longer have a drawer, so you have everything laid out, and all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, I forgot to ask about their Allllll, and you're like getting ready to prep them for a treatment. And you're like, oh wait, can you get off the chair, get your phone, we'll scan this. I don't love it. And then how do you redeem points? I don't think you can redeem points.
I'm just going to put a shock collar on it until she learns to ask that to every single person, and then we'll be fine.
So we're 50-50 on that one.
So then we really had to say, okay, is it a good decision for Bodify? Not only financially, but just on all fronts. So something I wanted to talk about, that's near and dear to my heart is that CoolSculpting has been around for 10 years. It is categorically the world's #1 non-invasive fat reduction treatment. But guess what? It has been singing the same song for a very long time, and we needed to be reinvigorated. We needed something new, a new shiny object to talk about, and not everyone is going to get the elite. And so as a company who brings it in, it is 100% your responsibility to start educating people on why it's more important to use the elite and why they need to choose a practice that has the elite, because that'll really allow you to separate yourself from the pack, maintain that higher cycle price, and educate the client so they can use the most innovative device that's out right now.
And I'd like to say that we normally have almost 100% close, rate when we're doing our consultations. It's not true. But in the last 2 weeks that we've been selling Elite, because we're the only practice in Arizona and because there's this buzz around it and people like the new shiny thing, literally closing at 100%.
Yeah.
And everyone's doing second rounds and they're so excited about it. So if you do get it, you're singing Elite from the mountaintop from the beginning, because it is going to give you that competitive advantage.
Yeah, and it's about the narrative, right? People come to us all the time and say, well, you're just CoolSculpting, so you're going to say, oh, it's so important to be the master of one versus the jack of all trades. It doesn't mean the jack of all trades doesn't work. It means if that's your story, if that's your narrative, as Melissa said, sing it from the mountaintops and make sure everything's congruent with it. So this device is great, but so is the CoolSculpting device. But the public doesn't necessarily know that, and so you can use it to your advantage in these cases. So easier to get the second treatment on. People are coming back, they're feeling a difference, they're excited about it, and we're not getting a lot of pushback at doing that second treatment visit at week 4, and we'll talk about why that's happening a little bit later.
You didn't even spoil it for us.
I didn't have to kick you. The other day I had to kick her under the table because she was saying things on future slides.
New PR opportunities. I will definitely say that CoolSculpting got a little bit stale, snooze fest. Nobody wanted to pick it up anymore. We tried, we had PR for months and months and nobody was like, we've been there, done that. And so with the new Elite, there will certainly be PR opportunities. So if you have a publicist or something like that, I would jump on it. Yeah,
because fat is always in. People always want to get rid of it. And so now they just needed, again, a new little shiny object to bring that back into the limelight and talk about solutions for stubborn fat. From a client perspective, so your clients are also going to get more Allllll points per cycle that they put on. Maybe this seems inconsequential, but I personally know when I go to make a purchase, sometimes this little nudge, a little $100 savings, $200 savings is the thing that logically gets me to say, oh, guess what? I want to do this for myself and I'm getting a good deal, so I'm going to move forward. So I think people are, it is going to be an advantage to be able to give people more Allllll points when they do CoolSculpting Elite.
When is that happening?
They think Q2, so stay tuned for that. We're not sure. All right, let's talk about the financial decision, Melissa.
Go ahead. I'm like, what's the machine plus card credit? Oh.
So I love Allllll because I think they could have, like many device companies, been like, guess what? This one's obsolete and now you get to buy the new one. And if you don't, too bad. And it's this huge chunk of money. So not only is there an existing customer discount on the machine, but they also are allowing people to trade in the machines up to a certain point, and then also a certain number of consumables, which really will just kind of ratchet down that investment that you're making. Yes, it's not altruistic. They want these machines and these consumables out of the marketplace so that, there's not this underground market for old machines and devices. But for me, it really did nudge us in the right direction to say, hey, they want us to have the newest and best, and they're actually making it compelling and easy for us to make that upgrade.
It also gives us a reason to reach out to our database. I know that we kind of talked about this before, but every week or every 2 weeks, we're sending out information on CoolSculpting. This is just something new and shiny with excitement. And I think we've sent out 2 or 3 emails to our database, and it's crazy the amount of people that are like, oh my gosh, I love CoolSculpting. I love you girls. Tell me what this is about. And they're on the books for it.
And so something we're really proud of is that 40% of our revenue every year, between 35 and 40, is repeat clients. So sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, what are you going to say to them? What are you going to engineer? What's the narrative so that you can kind of bring people back into that fold? And we have found that people are just excited about the Elite, especially people that have already done it and know that the CoolSculpting legacy worked. They're really, really excited about the potential of better outcomes.
So cost per cycle decrease. It went from $150 a cycle to $130. We love that. That's amazing. And it's interesting too, because the Plus, now the C240, instead of being worth 2 cycles, we usually charge double for that one, is going to be the same price, the $130. So I feel like this is really going to be a game changer in terms of people that are bigger, that sometimes we're quoting them and it's like $20,000 because they need 4 pluses on their tummy and they need it 3 times. So if we're going to adjust our pricing a little bit based on the cost per cycle decrease, I really do think that we're going to score some more of those people that needed bigger treatment plans, more cycles, get them in doing 2 and 3 sessions on the same area and really wow them.
And the whole point around that is we're going to increase this sentiment around CoolSculpting, right? We all know if someone, so for example, for us, if people currently do 4 pluses around their abdomen, it's $6,800. That's a pretty sizable investment to do 1 round. And sometimes they're not overwhelmed with the outcome, but we know if people do 2 and 3 rounds, they are. And so I'm not a huge fan of lowering prices, but in this case, I don't think we're going to lower it to 1 cycle, but I do think there's a little bit of leeway so that you can kind of get some of those people who before gave you a little bit pushback or said, maybe I'll just do 1 round versus doing the It Takes 2 treatment to transformation. So again, for Bodify, we have multiple machines. I don't necessarily think that in every single room we're going to be making more money, but practices that have 1 or 2 machines, 100%. This little bad boy is going to make you more money in a shorter amount of time, and it's going to be an awesome return on your investment for the practice as long as you market it. Just like with any device, you're not going to bring this one in and Allergan's going to do all this work and people are going to knock on your door and call and email, say, I want the Elite, I want the Elite. You're going to have a strategy to reach out to people, educate people, and bring them into the fold and freeze them.
The increase in utilization points, again, I think this is happening maybe in Q2, but CoolSculpting's their reward system, you get 5 points for every CoolSculpting cycle that you do. I think you're going to get more now for the Elite, and so it's going to bump you up quicker. You're going to hit those goals, those different tiers. I think there's 6 tiers. Better co-op, better store credit, all of those things. So that's exciting.
Awesome. All right, so let's talk about what we know. So one of the things I love about doing these webinars is we get to say things that Allergan can't. Right? So I always say, oh my gosh, we were like frisky little kittens when it was Zeltique days. You could say anything could be, anything flew. And then all of a sudden it was Allergan and they ratcheted it back a little bit what we could say. And now with AbbVie, it's like sometimes their hands are absolutely tied and their lips are literally sealed because they don't have the FDA clearance, or they don't have the new study that's approved, or they're just a big pharma company. But we've done close to a little over 350 treatments at this point. We got the new device in October for the beta testing, and we finally got our new ones shipped to us, but we can talk very transparently about what we're actually seeing that Allergan or your ASM might not be able to communicate.
Look at this thing. It's gigantic.
Gigante.
The first time we pulled this off a patient, all of our mouths hit the floor. We were like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a game changer for your bigger patients that have that nice big lip. I mean, the coverage it gets is incredible.
Awesome. And so we know it's a little bit more of a C shape versus a U shape. I don't know if you can see that. So the legacy applicators were a little bit more narrow, which really, kind of like the parallel plates, required more suction and more tissue and more compression. But what they found in a dye study is that those applicators weren't getting even contact on the area that you were treating as much as with the new C-shaped design. And that's critical. We can all connect the dots. If you're pulling in tissue and you're not getting full contact with the cooling panel, well, of course your result's not going to be as great. But now that they've transitioned that, the hope is, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, that we're cooling a bigger area, we're cooling it more consistently. And so, what do you think should happen? Better and faster results. And this one is actually 18% larger than the Legacy Plus. So this is the C240, and we love it.
So another thing that we know is that we are getting cooling beyond the template outlined. So when we go in, we're assessing our patient, we're getting them ready for treatment, and we're circling. When we put the applicator on, it's pulling in tissue. And when we take it off, we're like, what is that? It has gone beyond the template line. It is cooling more of an area. So it's a little bit, make sure in the beginning that you're practicing with it, because you are getting more of an area. So that really needs to change how your treatment plan lays out. But again, pay attention. And then second treatment visit, because we are getting such good reduction, you might need to change your treatment plan.
Yeah, we've had to shift a few. And the person on your right-hand side, you might, be inclined to say, oh, well, she has some laxity. So of course we're going to be pulling in some more skin. And so we're going to get better coverage than on someone who has tight skin. Not our experience at all. Obviously, we have the woman on that bottom left who did a chin treatment. She has youthful skin, she has tight skin, no laxity, and we were still seeing cooling beyond the template. And so that's just exciting because, again, the more tissue we're cooling, what do you think is going to happen? So let's talk about some results that we have seen. So full disclosure, Bodify has always religiously tracked when people are seeing results, what they're articulating at 4 weeks, at 8 weeks, at 12 weeks, at 16 weeks. And we have categorically seen that only about 10% of our clients are seeing a change that we can see via photos, and that they also articulate that they're seeing at week 4. Well, that makes it particularly hard when someone comes back at week 4 and you say, oh, I need another $6,800. They're like, I'm like, oh, I promise, it's a leap of faith, but we're going to get you there and we guarantee a result. Total game changer, because what's happening now, Melissa?
So all of these patients, I think we've treated 20 at this point, but these 3 right here came back at 4 weeks post their first treatment, and they were all saying that they noticed a difference. And then when we took their pictures and saw them, we were like, oh my gosh, every single one of these people, we had to change their treatment plans. A lot of them went down in size. We went from, the C240, now we're going to the 150, or we had to go from the old core to the petite. It was pretty impressive.
And something Melissa has always said for the last 10 years or 6 years of Bodify is, why are there some people that just get such astounding results and then other people it's a little bit lackluster? And as a clinician, that breaks your heart. You want everyone to get a great result. And she's always like, what is the difference? Like, why are some doing it and some not? And so we're excited because I just think, again, not only the sentiment in the marketplace about CoolSculpting will increase because people will be happy, but also the morale in your office. Like, it is not fun to bring people back and you're like, oh, cool, it's kind of a lackluster outcome. And don't get me wrong, we love CoolSculpting, but even if that happens to 10% of your clients and now it only happens to 5% or 2%, that's a really big motivator for your practice in wanting to sell, being confident about selling, and looking someone in the eye and saying, I know this is going to transform your body, and then being able to gift them that transformation. So just a few more examples of people changing. The one on the left, we did our bra line in a few different places. Absolutely astounding.
She just came in yesterday too.
Oh, so good.
2 months post her second treatment, and it is crazy.
Yeah, and it's just uplifting when people notice the difference. Like, she was like, oh, I think my mom said she's seen some difference and I'm definitely feeling it. And then when you match those photos and they're like, I didn't think it was going to work for me, but I saw it and I feel it. That again is just, it just feels totally different as an organization to know that you can deliver on your promises.
Okay, dun, dun, dun. So we've gone over the good, the things that we love about the Elite. There were definitely some bumps in the road when we first got the machine. We were trained by amazing Sandy Navarro. She was great, but honestly, she had, and the CSU team really didn't have that much experience working on the machine. And so maybe the first week it was like we had never done CoolSculpting before. It was so embarrassing. I was like having a mental breakdown. I'm like, I swear I've done 23,000 treatments. Like, there's just a little bit of this like learning curve. Speaking of curve, Jess.
So here's the new one, right? So the C150, and you can see that the contour is connected to the applicator and you don't have the ability to choose a different contour. So in the photo on the screen, we all love the curve, right? Especially in Arizona, there are people that have love handle fat, but they're narrow and that curve would just not latch on and you would have pop off. So with the core would pop off. So with the curve, it was a total game changer. You could treat more narrow people. You could get it to secure. You only had to use one applicator versus having 1 and 2. And so we've just found not only in treatment plans, maybe we're having to use the Legacy Petite with the new one, which is the F125, to try and get that to hold on. And we're just having to position the client differently.
Yeah.
So Melissa likes first class, and we always used to say Bodify was first class because we could relax you, lean you back. It was so comfortable. And now we're like, don't you move. You got to sit a little bit more erect, because we just find when people are leaning back, if they were better suited for the curve predecessor, we're having a little bit harder time getting this bad boy to stay on. But full disclosure, we spoke to Allllll about this. So did all the other assessment sites. And I have a feeling something's in the works.
This is where this tool is going to come in handy during your assessment. If it's not sitting on there, if you're moving it back and forth and it's barely grabbing somebody, you're going to have a harder time getting it to stay on. So you might have to downgrade and go to the smaller applicator, the Petite or the C120.
Yep, and you might have to use 2 of them to get the full length of the fat pad, since obviously that's smaller in length. So more ugly, because we love to talk about ugly. So who would have thought ever in a million years that we would miss the pagers? And maybe it's just a little bit of a learning curve, and maybe we'll love them eventually. But number one, it goes to your cell phone. So it's really important to say, okay, who's going to get it? What sound is it going to make? And how are you going to make sure that someone doesn't think it's a text message and they actually know something's going on with the machine? So initially, we unfortunately did miss a few alerts. We're kind of, figuring it out in the best system, but we've decided to get what?
So we're going to do an office iPhone, literally has no other alerts on it. We're going to get the most annoying, obnoxious, trying to get a loud sound that is your text message sound. That way it just goes there. It stays in one place. If I'm using my own phone, I'm used to just switching it off, and you're just missing things. So definitely, maybe even like a speaker that you can put it in.
Harman
Who would have thought
boom.
Those annoyingly loud beepers that we keep in the middle of the room that anybody from any room can hear? It's just different. It's different.
And something that has always been on my wish list, and I've articulated it, and I just don't think they're going to do it. Melissa literally has panic attacks when the pager predecessor goes off or this, because there's no distinction between 3 minutes left and error or patient called. And so for me, if it's an error, it's immediate, get in there. If it's patient called, okay, maybe I have 30 seconds. So I really wish that they would let us kind of delineate between what's being alarmed, the sound wise. So that way, when you hear it, you don't have a panic attack.
And Jess forgot to turn off this frickin' alarm yesterday for 25 minutes, and I was at home and it was going to my cell phone, and I was like, did you get in there? Did you forget that person was in there?
She wanted to kill me. It was not a pretty phone call.
25 alerts, yes.
Well, I like 2 and 5 is 7. That's a good number. All right, so let's talk about the consumables. So again, we love that they got rid of the Plus, the Petite, the Mini, etc. And they've swapped them out. As of now, they still have 2 cards. So one is a dual card and one is a solo card. So let's talk to them a little bit about Allergan's thought process behind this and how hopefully it's going to be changing if it hasn't already.
Yeah, so the dual card was obviously meant for if you're using the machine and you're going to use both applicators. Great in theory, love the idea. It had a staggered start. So if you started one, it would delay the other one 5 minutes. You literally could not start it, and it would start exactly 5 minutes later. For us at our office, we oftentimes will massage with both hands. Still getting great results. We're just getting in there really vigorously. So that really messed up our schedule.
And I think the second part about that is we all have those patients, not often, but that it hurts when you massage them, right? And so for me, let's say you're taking one off the arm and you're doing that massage, that client now has to sit there, cannot move, and has to have this stoicism, because if they move, they're going to pop off the other arm. And then 2 minutes later, you have to do it all again versus like, hey, let's just get this brutal massage done. Of course, that's few and far between, but for the people it hurts with, like the last thing as a tech that I want is to have someone sitting there miserably because I have to do 2 different sets of massages.
And then if there was an error on one of the applicators, normally on the old machine, you would just restart it, you were fine. You couldn't. You literally had to wait until the other side ended. We had one that even before, so there was a 5-minute delay, one was going, the other one popped off before it even started, and we could not restart it. What are you, like, how can we run our day that way? So that was insane. And then there's no grace period anymore. So you're losing a cycle. You don't have 10 minutes before you can just restart it. For me, it's annoying because we're getting more pop-offs and more interference and more errors with this new thing. You're calling it in, and it's not a short process to sit there on the phone, wait on hold, call it in, track it. It's just, hopefully they'll mess with that a little bit.
Yeah, and of course, the reason that that's important, right, is it can be hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. If you lose 10 cycles, I mean, that's a lot of money that the practice needs to get back. And so again, it's just one little extra step. But we do think that they're getting rid of the dual cards. The other thing that they had thought initially as well is with the dual card, each treatment would be $130. So that means it would be $260 for 2 cycles. But then the solo card was going to be $185. And so some of the story, or 180, sorry, some of the storyline that we told them is like, look, as a technician or as a business owner, I am then going to want to always use the dual card. And sometimes in terms of a treatment plan, that doesn't make sense and it can actually leave the client with a bad outcome. But guess what? Sometimes people make decisions on what's best for them in terms of profitability and margin. And so they might be placing 2 applicators on a stomach that has a really tight donut, when in reality that wasn't going to serve the client best. So we're grateful that we're pretty sure they're getting rid of that.
Yeah, I think they heard it loud and clear from all the
They've
assessment
been so great.
sites.
So yeah, they were awesome. More ugly. Let's keep going.
And we're really like
nitpicking
here because Velcro and bonnets, come on.
I don't know. I hate them.
So bonnets, they're hard to put on. It's like wrestling an alligator. The fits have different ones than the petites, than the curves and cores and everything like that. They're difficult to get on. I think they're redesigning it, but this little bit right here, if you don't put it on perfectly, it goes over the lip. And I think I got 4 interference errors on one person's tummy, and I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. And it was because this bonnet was over this and we weren't getting good suction.
Yeah, and then she had kind of mentioned the shape of this, but if you look at the old bonnets they had, there was much more Velcro all on the bonnet, which made it really easy for the strap so that you could just strap things on nicely. This has way fewer, much less surface area to connect those straps. And so what they've done is created these little mini Velcro straps. Well, guess what? I need a Velcro strap, little tab, like I need a hole in my head. I do not need to bring 68 other things into the, treatment room. And especially when you're trying to take it off and you're sitting there and all this Velcro straps are there and you're having to pull them off for laundry. So we are actually still using the old straps because we just find those have worked much better. They're a little bit longer, and we're just using, some inventive ways so that we don't have to use the Velcro straps and that we're getting the straps to secure to the bonnets.
Right, what's next? Oh, this one's my favorite. She is really pretty, but she's really quiet. So there are no touch screen sounds, which is fine. It's kind of fun to hit it and it makes that little bebop thing. But more importantly, for the massage and errors, there's no bong that tells you that it's done. And so what's happening is you hit the little 2-minute massage timer, which is so handy. I'm massaging away, it's done. I'm massaging and have no freaking clue. I've massaged for like 4 minutes and I'm like, God, this seems like a long time. Just a little sound would be nice. And then another
especially with the swivel of this screen, like you have to remember to put this towards you. So often we'll shift it so that the client can see how much time they have throughout the treatment. But when you're doing the massage, you have to remember to shift it back so that you can see the 2 minutes again, because as Melissa said, there's not a timer, particularly with the dual card. If you had that 5-minute delay and you were doing a massage and there was an error on the other one for whatever reason, well, guess what? You're not going to be notified of that.
I didn't hear.
And within a 5-minute period, it's okay that the treatment didn't go all the way through, but what's not okay is now you're waiting 5 minutes to do that massage, and that is critical to happen right away when that applicator comes off. Screen sensitivity, they're working on this because again, Allergan is wonderful and really listen to our feedback. Melissa likes to use her knuckles just because otherwise your hands are all jelly, and there's sometimes it's like, as she said, wrestling with a pig and getting that touch screen to move forward. An alligator, a pig, whatever. Or similar to like when you go, to Redbox and you're like, oh, I want the rom-com, and then it hits like the serial killer movie because it's not calibrated. So they have some things to figure out with that.
Again, she's pretty, but no drawer. You're very used to doing the same thing over and over again after 20-something thousand treatments. And so the first week you're going to be so discombobulated because you're reaching for the drawer that has your wipes and your gloves and your lotion and all that other stuff. So we purchased a supply cart, just a little like salon cart that we now still have to have a timer because there's no 1-minute pre-treatment wipe timer on there, but it just has everything. Just keep it next to your machine. And then there's also really no place for a boppy because you're putting both your applicators on top of the machine. And now if you put a boppy there, everything's just kind of in the way. So now you have to figure out a new place where you want to store your jelly boppies.
All right, so let's continue. So this is a good illustration. Obviously, with this applicator, you can't see it, but there is a connector piece with the umbilical that really actually makes this a little bit longer here nor there in terms of ease of use. But what has become a little bit of a stumbling block is that we're having to use more towels or washcloths, or the boppy is actually pushing up and popping off the applicator, especially since it's more C-shaped versus U-shaped. And so we're just kind of having to rearrange things and how we secure things, and also making sure that those heads aren't hitting each other and that they're not competing for space so that they're not knocking each other off. So all very easy to fix. But again, if you're a well-oiled machine and you get this device, you're kind of a little like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And I have to figure out best practices. Oh,
Woo woo. We just got our 4 Elite machines delivered to us this week, and they did not come with the new Pro or the S150. We're hoping they're coming soon. We haven't heard, but excited about it. It is smaller, which I think it's going to be great for a lot of outer thighs that we've turned down people with the predecessor. But we also use a lot of the Pro on people's flanks. And so it's going to be interesting to see if, because it's smaller, especially on guys, is that not going to be something that we can use anymore?
yeah, it doesn't make sense. So we'll keep you posted on that, since we have not had this little bad boy in our hands and haven't been able to experience it. But my guess is it's going to be valuable and a big asset. We have a list of probably 50 or 60 people, because we've always heard rumblings that there would be a smaller CoolSmooth Pro of people who came in and their peak just wasn't clear enough, or, you know, we were going into the no-fly zone with the CoolSmooth Pro. And so we're excited to be able to reach out to those people and say, we have a solution for you.
So this is a good and an ugly.
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
that is what I'm saying. So what we've decided, if we were real self, which we are not, we would definitely say that the CoolSculpting Elite is worth it. And theirs are very cute.
Out with the old and in with the new.
It took a lot of takes. My hamstrings apparently are not strong enough, and so we actually had to have someone pull that machine back, because I didn't want to kick it into outer space and I couldn't make it move enough. Perfect. So what Melissa and I wanted to do next before we open into questions, we have just had so many calls, which we love. We talk to ASMs, we talk to PDMs, we talk to accounts. We are a resource for you, whether you're thinking about getting the machine, or you already getting the machine, or you have the machine and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to shorten that learning curve. We would love to be available to you. We're doing virtual trainings of 90 minutes. It's our team that have done 350 treatments with the new CoolSculpting Elite. We're going to break down the machine, the applicator setup, but we're also going to get a little bit nitty gritty on how to sell it to clients, how to position it against people who don't have it, and then also just some best practices in terms of what we learned. So again, as soon as it's in your hands, you can rock and roll. So we will email after this. We're going to have an offer. We're going to have what the 90 minutes includes, etc. But we'd love to serve you however we can. So if you want that information, again, we're going to email you, but you can also email me, jessica@thebodify.com, and I'll give you all the deets on the 90-minute training. All right, so now we're going to open it up to questions. There's nothing off limits. We ask questions on social media, so we have a few that are canned so that we can address those if people aren't asking us a ton, but please ask us, because that's what we're here for.
All right, so this one's asking about Allergan, that they've come out with the new pricing, that they want the 400 cycle. You're not thrilled about it. We're not thrilled about it, obviously. What are your thoughts about them releasing that? And do you feel we'll need to adjust our pricing because that range that they gave out?
Yeah, so the reality is that they did it for a very small amount of time, and then they never changed it, right? So I believe it was Q3 of last year that they said, hey, we're just going to try and reinvigorate and re-inspire and get people to move forward. So we're going to lower MAP to $400. They never changed it. So you don't know what you don't know, right? So from Bodify's perspective, we have not felt that external pressure to lower our price. Are there people who are coming in, and I'm quoting them $6,800, and they go to the Ideal Images of the world and it's $2,100 and they buy from there and I never know? Of course there are. But this is what I believe. Top practices have the exact same gut reaction that you have, which is absolutely not. I know what CoolSculpting is worth. I know how it transformed patients' lives, and I know that people are willing to pay it. So there's no freaking way I'm going to lower my pricing.
Especially with the new machine and the results.
Better and faster results. So I think that you have to have the differentiators. I think you have to be clear on why the value is what it is. And I'm not saying that you might not eventually have to wiggle your price around, but I'm going to literally have to double the number of people I treat to make the same amount of money if I go from 800 to 400. No, absolutely not. So if those people want to go play on the, hey, we sell everything for cheap round, good on them, but it's not going to be us. And I've talked to so many top providers who are staunchly opposed to it. So we just got to unite and not do it.
I hope Jess wasn't unclear. How would you recommend selling a client if you have both versions of the machine?
Yeah, you want to answer me?
Yeah.
Okay, so we thought long and hard about this, and we didn't want to raise our prices with a new Elite, but we also know that perception creates reality, and we are absolutely seeing faster and better results. So there's a value add to that. And so one of the things that we decided to do is when we have both, because right now we currently do, we are talking about upgrading people for free. It's not going to be for the end of time, but for the first 6 months, anybody that comes in, if we have the old machine and the new machine, they can upgrade to the new machine for free. It's perceived value. People are going to be excited about it. They feel like they're getting something better for the same old price. But, you know, Melissa and I really want to do that because in good conscience, after seeing what we've seen, I don't want to put the old machine on someone. Yeah. Like it just flat out isn't getting as good of results. The only caveat to that is with the Cool Smooth Pro, right? If that new one is just not going to serve our client, or if somebody needs a curve because it keeps popping off of them, then we're going to have to use that legacy one.
Yeah.
But other than that, I just think it's about going to your database, positioning it as more valuable, and waiving an upgrade fee because that way they are feeling like they're getting more for their buck.
Good call. Where did we get that little cart?
Amazon.com. Jeff Bezos stepped down, so we'll see how things shift.
Yeah, he's on the board still, or executive something. Yeah. Are you going to keep both machines, the new and the old one? So we have switched 4 machines, old machines in, we received 4 back. We still have 3. We're going to get rid of them eventually, but we really want that Pro to come out. We really want to work out the kinks with the petite and the curves. And then as soon as we can pay for the other ones, we will.
Absolutely. Yes, we'll swap them over.
But they're just kind of dead weight now. They're sitting
sadly. They can be clothes hangers, whatever they said.
Yeah. Yes, so somebody said, yes, they did get rid of the dual cards, which is really exciting because those sucked.
Good news. Somebody asked about marketing and, you know, talking about the Elite. So as of right now, think about, you know, from Allergan's perspective, not everybody can have the Elite. They're not offering it to everybody. I think they had a little bit of some stumbling blocks with the Cool Tone launch, and so they're trying to go a little bit slower. So they're not necessarily going to change every DTC initiative right now to the CoolSculpting Elite. So that's why we think it's particularly important in your own marketing that you are talking about the Elite. Every single time my girls answer the phone, it's, oh my gosh, did you know we have the new CoolSculpting Elite? And this is why you should care. When you go to our website, there's a pop-up that says, oh my gosh, we're offering the new CoolSculpting Elite. So I think right now it's going to be much more of an internal effort. And then eventually Allergan's going to catch up. And I think that'll open things up. But you are going to have to do some heavy lifting to educate people on why they need the Elite and why they need to come to you versus a practice that doesn't have it.
This one is saying that she's going to keep 1 old machine and 1 new, and she doesn't know which applicators to keep from the old machine. I would definitely keep the Pro. I would definitely keep an Advantage and a Petite, and anything with a curve. Just keep those in your pocket just in case you can't. I had to sit there and literally hold on a bra line the other day, 2 of us holding the bra line.
She finally pulled her weight. Someone was asking what is the cost of the machine. So again, work with your ASM, be kind to them. It's kind of a nightmare, not because of them, but because they're literally melding Allergan and AbbVie, totally new CRM, new MSAs. Be patient. They're not out to, you know, do you injustice, but sometimes it takes a little bit longer to fine tune and figure out what you need. But there are the upgrades not only for the swap-ins for the consumables, the machines, and also the applicators. So use that to your advantage so that you can get these bad boys.
And get organized now, I would say, with all of your serial numbers of every machine, every applicator, every adapter, every card that you have. It'll just make that process faster. Just have it like in a Drive spreadsheet so that you can send it to your ASM so they can copy and paste. Don't send photos.
Yeah, so Brian, our ASM, was saying how everyone was sending him photos and he literally has to sit there and type in all the serial numbers. It's cumbersome. It's not something he wants to do. So it's probably not as high of a priority as someone who has it in a Drive and a spreadsheet and can just copy and paste.
This one's asked, I'm sorry, were you gonna?
Oh, the one before it. So people asked about website updates, social media updates, same thing, right? Like people are gonna start saying CoolSculpting Elite. You need to get a press release out. You need to start putting it in your newsletter. You need to start going to your website and looking at that copy and start integrating the language of the new CoolSculpting Elite, because guess what? The first people who do that are gonna get the most Google juice and the most organic SEO juice. And so something we were grateful for is that we had 3 months to do it, but literally focus your energy and make sure that wherever you are, whatever you're doing in terms of marketing and website, that you are starting to integrate the word Elite, because it is going to matter in terms of getting people to notice that you have it.
This person's asking if we believe that we can say that the results are better or can we just say, I mean, I don't know. We are saying that it's better because we, in our personal experience, we know the applicators are a different shape, they're redesigned, they're getting better contact. When we're pulling it off, we're seeing bigger areas, and the people that we've seen come back are seeing better and faster results.
Yeah, and because we have that narrative of, oh, guess what? Previously, we would see about 10% of our clients saw a reduction at 4 weeks, but we've done blank number of people and everybody's seen a change at 4 weeks. That's true to us. And I do absolutely know that Allergan is committed to getting through that FDA clearance. It's cumbersome, it's long, it's expensive. They're not going to be able to say it tomorrow, but at the end of the day, I don't know if people care if you say, oh, it's clinically proven to do this more, or guess what? In my experience of hundreds and hundreds of treatments, we're seeing better and faster. So we're confident.
The only caveat obviously is co-op. If you're doing marketing,
oh
and
yeah,
you want co-op dollars, follow their thing, but anything internal, you could say that.
Absolutely.
Asking if the surface has a slight suction to it now. No clue.
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of.
Maybe we'll have to do another little webinar when we get that, but that bad boy is not shipped to us, but we're very excited and hopeful. So we will give you updates.
Do we think that we'll have more clients that only need one treatment as opposed to the average 2 treatments?
No. So we were talking to Tekla, we've talked to her quite frequently and she's just brilliant, but they really noticed that when they went to Botox and started saying, hey, it takes 2 or it takes multiple treatments, that it just revolutionized the sentiment around Botox and people being willing to comply with the treatment protocol that the doctor, the provider were recommending. Something for Bodify, full disclosure, that's been tough for 6 years is that we came from the world of you just put one freaking max across the belly button and that was all you did and people got the result. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, you have to do a diamond shape. And then it was like, oh, you need more than one treatment. But what we know, and I think what's clear in our hearts is that seriously, I would rather have someone not do CoolSculpting than just do one round, because we find this sweet spot in terms of investment and gratitude and excitement about results almost always is at that 2 treatment mark. So we're saying it takes 2 all day long.
Yeah, and we're going to just really change our verbiage around how we're selling it. It's no longer, after your first visit, you're going to see 20% reduction. After your second visit, it's no, your CoolSculpting transformation is going to happen over 2 office visits, and that's how we're selling it.
And even changing the before and afters, right? Yeah. So right now we have before and after. It's like, oh, this is 4 weeks after 1. This is 8 weeks after 2. We're going to do the before, during, and after. That's thanks to Allergan's suggestion. They're going to be rolling that out as well. And I just think people are going to see that entire journey of where someone started and where they end. And in their brain, it's not going to be like, oh, I could stop midway. It's like, no, how did they get to that final transformation? And that's what I'm signing up for.
Okay, I think last question. I noticed in the video that you applied the posterior flank while seated. Do you always apply that way, or is it because the pop-offs with the Elite?
So we have always gone against the grain. I have no clue why Allergan trains, standing up. It's like for me, when people do the inner thigh and they put their leg high up and then have them like do this awkward deja vu or deja crawl hopping around. I don't know. I think it's so bizarre. And also if you think about it, like when someone's up here, their flanks are positioned differently than when they're sitting and relaxed. And so for us, we've always found the best and most consistent tissue draw and ease of getting the client comfortable and not popping off when people sit. You just have to make sure when they sit that they're sitting away from the back of your chair and that their arms are here. So you get these on, you put a boppy, 1 or 2 around them, and then you lean them back in the chair.
Yeah, the flank
less leaning now.
Yeah, change as much when you're sitting to here. Don't ever apply it while you're like laying down flat or on your side. That stretches the area. We don't want to do that. But yes, we've always applied it while they're sitting.
Perfect. So I don't think there's any other questions, but everyone does have my email, jessica@bodify.com for more questions. We truly are here to support you. We love everyone's support and enthusiasm, and we'd also love to train you if that's something that you or your office is interested in. So here's my email. Be on the lookout for an email, but we definitely think it's worth it, and we're really, really, really excited about the future for CoolSculpting Elite.
Thanks, guys. Oh.
There we go. Look at all those cute people. Hey, Jess. You're so cute. I love you.